love Timmy because after apprenticing for me for a year, he graciously gave up his seat so the new girl on the desk, Julie, could take it, putting her right between Cogs and me. He then proceeded to spill hot coffee on himself, at which point he took off his pants and worked in his boxers, or filters as Cogs called them, the rest of the day. This meant Julie had no choice but to spend the rest of the day looking towards me. She's been married to me now for 25 years, so I really have to say thank you, Cogs. But as hard as I try to lift him up to perfection and spin him into St. Timothy, I have to remind you that one reason I did love Cogs is because he could be such a sore loser. We were in a very competitive golf match down at the Greenbrier in West Virginia. Cogs and I were playing in a match against our boss, Tucker O'Keefe, and it was very close and getting a little heated. On the 18th, Tucker hit the shot of a lifetime, right next to the pin, for what would most likely be the match. Timmy didn't say anything, but just walked up to the green, unzipped his pants, and peed on Tucker's ball. Then he turned around and said, "Nice shot, Tucker." With him, it was never a dull moment. Even when it should have been. Once, he went on a much-needed vacation to the Caribbean, just for R&R, and returned with a severely blackened eye and a row of stitches in his face as well. He looked like Petey, the dog from the Little Rascals. Better was his earnest explanation that it happened when he was out at a bar, not bothering anyone and just minding his own business. He also had no tolerance for stuck-up or self-important people. 8 of us were at a dinner at the Four Seasons, and one of our customers showed up with a new date. She had an interesting job at Ralph Lauren, different from the same old Wall Street jobs we were used to, so it seemed promising. But it was clear from the outset that she didn't seem thrilled to be there. She'd been introduced as Mary Grace, and I guess Cogs figured he'd make an effort. He tried to engage her in conversation and led with, "So Mary," at which point she corrected him that it was Mary Grace, not Mary. The rest of us exchanged careful glances with the unspoken understanding of, uh-oh, here we go. The entire dinner was then spent with Cogs using every incarnation of Mary something other than the right one. Mary Catherine, Mary Ann, Catherine Grace. Each time he was corrected, each time he came up with a new one. The rest of us were just spectators in this game who knew our only job was to not make eye contact, for fear of the uncontrollable laughter we knew would follow. After dessert, she announced that she wouldn't be coming out with us after dinner since she had to go home, and this is the truth, to vacuum her apart. Final score, Cogs 1, Mary Ann Catherine Grace 0. I loved him because he was willing back in 1981, when the Meadowlands was just opening, to attend every Springsteen concert with me that was held that summer. We were there night after night after night, with seats right up front. So years later, when Springsteen wrote the lyrics, "When they built you, brother, they broke the mold," I still believe there must have been some long, receded memory Bruce had of seeing Timmy dancing in the front row, wearing his loud Hawaiian shirt, his giant grin, and holding a brew. I loved Cogs because he was as hardworking, driven, and competitive a person as I have ever worked with. I've often said that while I taught him the technical aspects of our business, he taught me to approach it with an unrelenting intensity. He expected a lot from those who worked with him, with little use for colleagues who whined, slacked off, or had any hint of an ego. And he never hesitated to tell a co-worker that they had screwed up in very clear and colorful terms, But he was always tougher on himself than anyone else. If he missed a trade, was in the middle of a difficult situation with a customer, or had just screwed up, we learned to just keep our distance until he'd gotten it out of his system. He often came up with unusual solutions to problems we had on our desk. On 2 different occasions, we were being badmouthed by customers who, rather than just doing business away from us, went around making up reasons why they couldn't do business with our desk. In both instances, Cogs decided that the best approach was to take them out to dinner and get things straightened out. Both nights ended with Cogs grabbing them by the collar and pushing them up against the wall so he could explain, Cogs style, how the problem might be resolved. Oddly enough, in both cases it was. Another time we were going to dinner with a customer who hadn't done any business with us. Cogs came up with an entire strategy to change this. It drove him crazy when someone wouldn't do business with us or him. And as we rode up in a cab to meet this guy at a restaurant, Cogs was mapping out his game plan as if it was the NBA Finals. He was so completely wound up and intense through dinner, waiting to give his pitch, that I began to worry he might just spin out of control. Finally, as we were ordering dessert, Cogs began by saying that he was really hoping this customer would consider doing business with us. And just as Cogs was about to really lay it on, the guy said, "Sure, no problem." And that was it. I had to stop from laughing out loud at how much pressure Cogs had managed to put on himself when all it took was to ask.